Apple finally put the M5 series of chips into the Mac Studio. So in this video, we're going to talk about everything Apple announced, the things I'm excited for with the Mac Studio, the things I'm disappointed in, if you should upgrade, or if you should save a little bit of money and get a Mac Mini instead. At first glance, these look exactly the same as the M4 Max and the M3 Ultra Mac Studios. They're the same exact enclosure, but these have some really nice under the hood improvements. Like the storage on these is gonna be about double the speed, close to 12,000 megabytes a second on the read and the write, compared to about the 6,000 megabytes a second that we were getting with the last generation of chips. These are still gonna include Thunderbolt 5, and they're now upgraded with Wi-Fi 7 chips. Also, there's some other cool features like Genlock over USB-C, and the fact that with the Ultra chip, you can run up to 8 external displays on it, which is amazing. With the M5 Max, I think you can still run 5 external displays, which is still gonna be really cool to be able to do that all from one computer. They're also now configurable all the way up to 512 gigabytes of memory if you've got that kind of money, but that kind of configuration is not gonna ship out until late October. So there are some great new features with the Mac Studio, but there's also a lot that's still the same. Like the fact that even though they raised the prices on these, the Max chip still starts with 512 gigabytes of storage, which I find to be very frustrating because the laptops all raised to start with at least a terabyte if you got a M5 MacBook Pro or an M5 Pro or an M5 Max. And the M5 Max MacBook Pros now start with 2 terabytes. Apple's still starting the Mac Studio with 512 gigabyte SSD, and the M5 Ultra starts with 1 terabyte. Also, you get 36 gigabytes of RAM with the M5 Max, and you get 96 right out of the box with the M5 Ultra. So unfortunately, they didn't raise the starting RAM or the starting SSDs to the level that I was hoping they would. Also, when I saw the announcement, I was really debating on which upgrades I wanted to put in the M5 Max because I have a heavily upgraded M4 Max. I got the 2 terabyte and the 64 gigabytes, and I upgraded the GPU on it right when it launched, and I felt like it was really expensive at the time. Honestly, the M4 Max computer is still running everything totally fine for me. One of the biggest improvements with the M5 series of chips over the M4 is the neural accelerators on every core, which is just going to lead to better local AI performance, which I don't do a ton of. I mostly use my computer for video editing. So I would say if you've already got an M4 Max, there's really no reason to upgrade on it, especially if you're happy with the specs you've already got on the computer. If you've got an M1 or an M2 era machine, it is a good time to buy an upgrade though, because Apple's made significant improvements over the last few generations of chips. If you're running local AI models or if you're grading 8K footage, then the Ultra chip and the 512 gigabyte ceiling would be a reason you could consider upgrading, but it is gonna cost a lot of money to do that. So what you have to look at whenever you're considering these newer computers is not just the price of it, but how much productivity are you gonna be able to get back out of the computer by springing for all those upgrades. So for my own math, the M4 Max still handles my 6K multicam just fine, and Apple's own number puts the Ultra at 1.3 times the CPU performance of the M3 Ultra that launched in March of 2025, which is not $3,000 of reason to upgrade. And if you're sitting here not knowing which of these is for you, I've got a link in the description where you can fill out a form on my website and I'll reach out and help you pick out the Mac computer you need. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel because I've got review units coming in. I'm gonna be putting all these through real testing as soon as they land. There's really 2 things that have changed. The Ultra is 4 chips in one. Apple has fused 2 of the M5 Max chips together, and each of those is already 2 pieces of silicon. The connection between them is fast enough that macOS never sees 4 of anything. So it's 1 chip as far as your software knows, and this is the first time Apple has done this. Apple did not raise the graphics core count on it though. The M3 Ultra that they compared this to already had 80 GPU cores, and the M5 Ultra also goes up to 80 GPU cores. So every graphics and AI gain came from redesigning the cores, not adding more of them, and most coverage is gonna miss that. Apple didn't build a bigger GPU, they really just rebuilt the one that's already there. Let's talk a little bit about AI performance and where these computers come into play. The newer M5 Ultra has 1.2 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth. The M6 Mac Mini goes up to 170 gigabytes a second of memory bandwidth and 307 gigabytes of memory bandwidth on the M5 Pro. The M5 Max is a big jump over both of these. The base M5 Max runs 460 gigabytes a second, and if you go up to the 40 core GPU, it hits 614 gigabytes a second. So against the M5 Pro Mac Mini's 307 gigabytes a second, you're looking at somewhere between 1.5 to 2 times the memory bandwidth, depending on which one you configure. That's the real reason to step up from a mini to studio. It's not really about the core count, it's that the studio moves memory twice as fast. That shows up in exports, in big timelines, and in anything AI. Great AI performance needs two things. It needs capacity of RAM that can hold the model that you're loading, and it also needs memory bandwidth to be able to quickly read and write across it and read the whole model out of the memory. So the memory speed is gonna set the pace of the chip. If you get the 512 gigabyte M5 Ultra, that means you're gonna be able to hold models on this desktop computer that aren't gonna fit on anything else you can buy. Apple's also said you can cluster these computers over Thunderbolt 5, and if you plug 4 of these machines into each other, you're gonna get 3 times the performance that one of them was gonna be able to do. And no one's got to test this outside of Apple yet, but this is also another exciting feature. And I would say the price with these computers is really about what's gonna fit into the memory more than just how fast the processor is. Also, if you're a video editor, it's important to note that the M5 Ultra has 4 ProRes encode and decode engines, and the M5 Max has 2, which means video exports should be about double the speed on the Ultra chip over what you're gonna get on the Max, which is notable if you're doing a lot of exports or a lot of longer exports of video projects. You're gonna save a lot of time with the Ultra chip, and time at the end of the day is still money. Let's talk about pricing and what model you should get. The Ultra is gonna start at $5,500, and a maxed out version of this runs past $18,000 today. It'd be over $20,000 once the 512 gigabyte model is available. And unfortunately, there's nothing between getting 96 gigabytes of RAM and a $4,000 jump to 256 gigabytes of RAM if you're getting the M5 Ultra chip. With the M5 Max chip, it does still start with 36 gigabytes of RAM, and you can also get it with the 512 gigabyte SSD right out of the box. Upgrading to 1 or 2 terabytes is gonna be pretty expensive, and going up to 64 gigabytes of RAM is gonna cost an extra $1,000. So I would say if you're debating getting an M5 Max or an M5 Ultra, you need to make sure that you're keeping the M5 Max computer in about the $3,000 to $4,000 price range. If you get over $4,000 on it, you really need to consider just buying the Ultra because of the extra memory bandwidth, video encoders and decoders, and the fact that it does come with 96 gigabytes of RAM out of the box. And also one other little cool feature about the M5 Ultra, it has Thunderbolt 5 ports on the front and the back. With the M5 Max, it's just USB speeds on the front ports. So the Ultra does have some really nice advantages over the Max chip. I would say if you're gonna get one of these, get a cheaper M5 Max, or else consider just spending the extra money to get the Ultra. If you're thinking about buying a Mac Studio, you need to at least look at the Mac Mini because Apple did just launch the M5 Pro and also the M6 Mac Minis. And I think similarly to the M5 Max versus the M5 Ultra, you gotta consider any of the upgrades you might be purchasing before you decide if you should stick with that model or just upgrade the whole chip. The M6 is really gonna be the best option for you if you just need to get the cheapest computer possible. And I would say only upgrade one thing on it. So either get 24 gigabytes of RAM and keep the 256 gigabyte storage option, or if you do want to go up to the 512 option, you're going to be spending about $1,200 with that computer. But anything beyond that is going to push the price closer to $1,400. In that case, you need to get the M5 Pro over the M6 because it has double the memory bandwidth. If you get the M5 Pro Mac Mini, that'll start at $1,700, which is still $800 cheaper than the Mac Studio, but it has about half the speed on the memory bandwidth while still starting with 24 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. So similarly, you could upgrade the Mac Mini and get a little bit more RAM, or you could also get a little bit more storage size. But if you push it where it's about $2,200 on the upgrades, I think you need to just get the Mac Studio because that is gonna be way faster than the M5 Pro Mac Mini, and partially just because it has the double video encoders and decoders. But at the end of the day, all these computers are going to be amazing. I don't have any of these computers on hand yet, but I've got all the base models on the way, and I'm going to be doing tons of real-world testing on these, running both benchmarks as well as specific software tests, and just comparing the differences between these so that when you go to buy, come to my channel, find the videos. I'm going to have every question that you need answered. And if you got anything specific you want answered, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear them. Like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on these new desktop computers as soon as I launch the videos.